This is a short introduction to the logical operators in PHP. The three operators that we're going to look at are AND, OR and NOT. They're the most common ones that you're really going to use, and these are operators that take two operands and or one in the case of NOT and return a Boolean value. So when we're working with the logical operators, we always are going to be working with a Boolean variable or a Boolean expression. So let's just create a Boolean variable here. Let's just call it Santa is real. And it's a good idea when naming Boolean variables to use is in the name of that variable, so that when we're reading the code we know that it's going to be a Boolean, because when we speak in English and we're looking for a yes/no answer, we usually say is or are. Is it a warm day? Is Santa real? Are you going somewhere, etc. So when we use is or are, it's a good convention to use those in the variable name. People know it's a Boolean, and also it makes it easy to read. For instance, if we have an if statement and we're checking the value of this variable to see whether it's true or false. Oh, I should copy and paste that variable instead of retyping it. Always good practice as well. And then let's just say put presents under the tree. This is part of Santa's present program. So let's set this to true. So we're assigning the value of true to the Santa is real variable. And let's just have a look here. Let's just run this code. Press F5. We're using the Skype editor, and we just see we have an error here somewhere, and that is that we just mistyped O there. Let's run that again. Okay, that's fine. So we can see that the output here was put presents under tree, which means that this must have evaluated to true. And if we read this line now, it says if Santa is real. So that's very close to natural English, just the advantage of naming our variable this way. Now supposing we had another variable that said it's Christmas Eve or not. We want to check whether it's Christmas Eve. Not only that Santa is real, but it's Christmas Eve. So let's just call this is Christmas Eve. And you can see from the variable naming that I'm using what's known as camelback notation, which is the standard convention nowadays in programming, particularly coming out of Java, where you start off with a lowercase letter, or it's also called a sentence case, where you capitalize every letter of every word, every new word. Now a lot of people don't like having long variable names like this. I happen to like them. This isn't overly long, but I think it's more descriptive. And so you start with a lowercase letter for the first word, and then for subsequent words you just use an uppercase. So now supposing we have two conditions now. If whether Santa is real is going to be true or false, and whether it's Christmas Eve is going to be true or false. So to test these two conditions, we use the AND operator. This is the logical AND operator. It takes two operands here, which should evaluate to a Boolean true or false. It takes the whole operation, and that whole operation is going to evaluate to true or false. So if both of these conditions are true, then put presents under the tree. So with AND, both conditions must be true to get a result of true to execute this. So let's just quickly check. So F5 run. I'm using the Skype editor here again in the output, but this would be output to a web page on a server if you're using your local host or whatever. So that's obviously true because it's output here, put presents under tree. But if we change one of these to false, so Santa's not real, we run it again, and this time there's no output. We change this one to false, we run it again, both conditions are false again, this isn't output. So both conditions must be true in an AND statement. Now supposing it's not Christmas Eve, and supposing Santa he's obviously superhuman, and he works all the time. He works every single day of the year. He works on Christmas Eve, he delivers the presents, and when it's not Christmas Eve he works on toys, and he works on lists of good children and bad children. So let's say if it's not Christmas Eve, work on toys and lists. And let's just run that to see what happens. And that is output because it isn't Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve is false. So if it's not Christmas Eve, oops, work on the toys and the lists. And if we change Christmas Eve to true, well then that's not going to execute. So let's just run that, and you can see that that didn't output the second time. So what the not logical operator does is it takes one operand, which is going to evaluate to a Boolean value of true or false, and it just flips that value. So if we use var dump here, we can just take a look at this. Remember, var dump is just a function that takes an expression and outputs some information to us as to the type of that expression and the value of it. So it's both type and value. So let's see what this expression, that the type and the value of this expression is. And it's bool false because it's a Boolean. Not always gives a Boolean value. It takes Boolean operands and it returns Boolean value, and it's false in this case because it is Christmas Eve, so that reverses that value. So we can see this even simpler by passing in false. If not false, it's going to be true. So we get true, and not true is going to be false. So the not operator is very, very simple. And if you're getting confused, just go back to the example. If it's not Christmas Eve, work on the toys and the list. So it's often easier when you have real examples to work with.